In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The first Sunday, or just let's say the Sunday immediately following Easter, has for a long time been known by the rather prosaic name of Low Sunday. The reason for it being that compared to all the high celebrations and usually great attendance at the Easter ceremonies themselves, it seemed of a rather low spirit. Now that has changed, and we follow the Roman Catholic example, and let me tell you why it changed and how. Back in the 1920s and in the 1930s, there came upon the scene very modestly and with very little fanfare at first a holy nun in Poland, Maria Faustina Kozłowska, who, as this so often happens, entered the nunnery at an early age, and was not treated terribly well in the nunnery, just like Saint Bernadette and others. I don't know why these things happen, but one of her distinguishing marks having been that she had visions of Christ, who came and spoke to her at great length, and who brought, by way of those discourses with Maria Kozłowska, really brought an entirely new way of looking at the afterlife of Roman Catholics, and has really started a spiritual movement within the Roman Catholic Church, which is growing every day and every year since then, and which I think is a development of very great help to God's people. Now, you need to keep in mind that there are both valid and perhaps at other times somewhat exaggerated and therefore less valid theological statements in the Roman Catholic Church, which indicate that when people have been engaging in sinful activities of some considerable magnitude and have died while being in an unredeemed condition in their soul, they might have a rather unpleasant time in the hereafter. Now, it's very easy to dismiss these things and, oh, well, hellfire and purgatory, and it's all a bunch of cruelty that some old cruel popes back in Rome had devised while eating their spaghetti. The latter part probably not so often mentioned. And that, that's all there is to it. But let's say our knowledge, such as it is, even in a Gnostic point of view, of what happens in the afterlife is not very rich and is, to say the least, sometimes ambivalent. And so it's understandable for a variety of reasons that people, whether in the Roman Catholic Church or elsewhere, would have some concern about their fate once they put the body aside. Death and thereafter, these are serious issues. and to just sort of dismiss them in a light-hearted way is not the right thing either. So these are matters to which some serious attention has to be devoted. Now, the discourse is delivered by a figure identified by her as Christ himself to now Saint Maria Faustina, or many. It's a great big thick book, and in it there is a repeated emphasis that the spiritual quality brought into the world and still being exercised therein by Jesus Christ is the quality of mercy. And that with this mercy, the difficulties that maybe ordinarily would be encountered in the afterlife or maybe even in this life, as the result of our human failings, is thereby greatly diminished. Probably the most important statement made by the Christ figure to the now sainted Polish nun was to the effect that if someone dies and is not in a state of grace, as the Roman Catholic Church calls it, in other words, has died with some or more than one serious sin on their souls, that if he is addressed at that time, and the proper prayers which are given in the Divine Mercy prayers, Divine Mercy chaplets, are said by the dying person, and the Christ figure says, "I will stand between him and the Father, and he will come to no harm." Really an astonishing statement, and one that I think met with considerable amount of skepticism and opposition when it first became public. Yet the Divine Mercy movement now has grown to a tremendous movement within the Roman Catholic Church of millions of people, and its core is the promise given to Saint Maria Faustina that the Lord Christ is here and he looks out for us, and that he will, let us say, not permit grave and difficult and cruel, that a cruel fate should befall people when they go to the other side, especially when they manage to align themselves with the keynote of Divine Mercy. And those of us who grew up as Catholic boys and girls will agree with me that let's say, the terror of eternal punishment that was very prevalent and probably still is in many places in the Catholic Church was a great and difficult burden to bear. I know as a little boy I spent many a night worrying about whether I was going to go to hell or not. Of course, if I had been wiser, I would have known that I was in hell already, being in this world and in the war and everything else. But in any event, there is a mystery here, and would take us much too long to go into various details, but let's say from the very beginning of the Christian era, the keynote of divine mercy was always there, sometimes more emphasized and sometimes less. In fact, I read in in the literature of the Divine Mercy movement, there was a number of years ago, there was a convocation of Roman Catholic and invited clergy in Vienna, in fact, I think, on the subject of the Divine Mercy keynote and movement. And the rather young-looking Russian Orthodox bishop was there as an invited guest, and he's the head of the Orthodox in Austria. And he came out and quoted, says, we never had, in the Orthodox, we never had the belief in eternal hellfire. He said, and he quoted various church fathers of the Orthodox Church indicating that the salvific import of divine mercy was present in the early church, and that the Orthodox, for instance, had never done away with it. So it's very important recognitions. So let us say, what are we dealing with here? Well, like in so many, we are dealing with a mystery. We can't and we should not fixate these mysterious and mystical statements and to fixate them into some kind of a trivial, dogmatic formulation. But we should keep in mind that there was always, and in different historical periods expressed in different ways, there was always a keynote there that when properly done, when participating in the mystery in the proper manner, that there is a strange divine working of consciousness, which has been called mercy, and that has been recognized from the very beginning, really, of the Christian Church. And this is present in the Eucharist, in the Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. And I think that keynote has been often misunderstood as sort of a scared and slavish begging for a good treatment in the higher worlds, and that was never really the issue at hand, but that there is a particular quality of the, well, let's say, let's use the term of the higher power that extends a salvific help to us, even while we are still in the body and after the body. And that if we invoke that quality, the quality of mercy, then our progress in the higher worlds is thereby greatly facilitated. And that this is an important matter to keep in mind. The Kyrie eleison, which we have never changed in our rite from the Greek, is Lord have mercy. Which in Old Slavonic, which is used by the Russian Orthodox and other Slavic churches, is the Gospodi pomiluj, Lord have mercy, which is repeated at great length during the various liturgies of the Orthodox Church. So there is something here that we can call on a quality of the divine, in addition to various other qualities maybe, but this quality that addresses itself to us and that is able and willing to remove from us the difficult and sorrowful and sad and fearful states of mind that we accumulate here on earth, and assures us that we don't have to be in that consciousness, and we'll be able to go into the higher worlds without that encumbrance, without that curse upon us. This is a very important matter. No wonder the Divine Mercy movement has grown so widespread and is doing so much good throughout the world. Now, say we are Gnostics, what does it mean to us? Well, I have never seen any kind of denial in the documents of the Gnostic tradition of the possibility that unpleasant and unhappy things can happen to the soul when it is in the body, or when it is not in the body. And the Gnostic picture of reality is an extremely rich one, wherein all kinds of things can happen. But it is present there from the very beginning, and certainly reappears again and again throughout history, that there is a quality which can be conferred in various ways and which comes from on high, that is mercy. The name of it comes from the French, the way we use it now, from the French, it enters the English language, merci. And I don't feel it is appropriate to go into details at this point, but it is, for instance, a very, very important mystery of all the traditions of the troubadour tradition, which of course is also closely connected with the Qatar and otherwise, wherein this sacrament of mercy is administered by the embodiment, the earthly embodiment of the wisdom lady of Sophia, who is the, so to say, the initiator in the troubadour tradition, and it's called by the French name of Merci. And so there is something here that has been present all along, but that happily has been revived by way of the visionary contact with the higher power and its representative, the Lord Christ, and his humble and very devoted Polish nun, and subsequently brought out, so to say, from the cupboard by the countryman of the Polish nun, Il Grandpapa, as his successor, Pope Benedict called him, the great Pope John Paul II, who had brought out the revelation and the tradition of divine mercy as it was given to Faustina. Pope John Paul declared her a saint, and he championed the Divine Mercy movement. If you are ever up in Massachusetts, and not just eating beans in Boston, but outside where the several states come together, there is a wonderful property, the Shrine of Divine Mercy, which is particularly devoted to this, and it is administered by Polish priests. And Pope John Paul II, when he was here in America, went specially there and stayed overnight. So in typical Eastern European fashion, you have the picture of Pope John Paul painted, a huge picture on the outside of the house where he stayed overnight. It's a lovely and truly sacred place. And of course, in various ways also the Divine Mercy has spread. There is an icon, and my friend, our good subdeacon, had happily put it up there on the behind the altar on the tabernacle, which was painted under the direction of Saint Maria Faustina by a painter, because this came the closest to the way that he saw Christ. Now I must say that some of the reproductions are not all that great, but the one we have here is fairly good. There are some that seem to carry more of the really of the quality of the Divine Mercy, and now these icons are everywhere, and like other icons, they are windows into another reality, and if we look at them while we raise our spirits to the throne of Divine Mercy, I think they can be very helpful to us. And once again, we have some of the small Divine Mercy icons that are back there, I think, by the piano. And if you are so disposed, then please take some at home. You know, an icon is always something that brings to our mind and brings to our attention a particular quality or a particular being. And I think it's a very useful custom to contemplate such. So you know and I know that we live in a strange period of history where, let us say, many things go on that are highly undesirable, let's put it that way. And that our culture, which after all was founded on Judeo-Christian scriptural background and so forth, is moving in directions that I think are very unfortunate. But we also need to keep in mind that while there are many bad things going on in the world and among humans, the good is also present. And probably one of its greatest representations is the Divine Mercy movement. And once again, this is not a matter of cringing for a big and scary God to be merciful to us, but it is calling upon a quality of the divine, which has been manifest throughout history and which has been particularly emphasized through this Polish saint recently, that there is a beyond all the terrible things that go on in the world, somewhere back there is a point of good. And that good comes from a relationship that the divine has to us. Has been often, we are being loved. And you know that's difficult often to admit. I had a peculiar experience of that sort myself, where the recognition that I am actually loved by the divine made me just about fall down, or actually made me fall down to the ground, because we don't look upon ourselves as all that lovable, and that's probably true. I mean, we are rascals and tricksters and all that sort of thing, but still there is something there is some power there that has never ceased loving us, and that will help us, and that extends its help and its mercy to us. And whatever, people believe in karma, this, that, and the other thing, whatever the condition there may be, it will take out of the way those forces that would make us unhappy, that would be not conducive to our progress toward the divine, and that is the quality of mercy. And so to the extent that that is feasible for us, it's a good thing to study the Divine Mercy Chaplet, which was given to Saint Maria Faustina, and it's said with the help of the Rosary, and it is a very effective, wonderful prayer. Once again, things like the Divine Mercy Chaplet, or the Rosary for that matter, these are not things that we should approach with the power of intellect. These are not issues that are to be contemplated in a mental fashion, but we should approach them as a mystery that can redound to our benefit and to help us greatly. And it's really one of the developments in the world today, I think, that is probably the most promising. There may be others that we don't know of, but I think it's a very wonderful manifestation of the ineffable greatness that reminds us that we are still loved, and we can call upon this mysterious quality of divine mercy, and that will redound to the eternal benefit of our souls. It's really one of the truly good things that has happened in that strange 20th century, and is coming over at this time too. So let's try to keep that in mind, and then this Sunday, which is devoted to that, then let us ask for that mystery to come to us and to help us now and in the life after the present life also. So it's a very important thing to keep in mind. Now, we are already past the time, but let's say certainly I have experienced that in various ways, and I would say I would not have survived 54 years of wearing this pointy hat if it were not for divine mercy. Because I knew on the 9th of April that day that this is going to be a very difficult journey. And I practically begged my consecrator and says, Bishop Richard, can't we just forget about this? Can't we just maybe do it some years? No, he says we have to do it now. And of course, a few years later, he was gone from the world unexpectedly too. But let's say these activities of those of us who administer the mystery require a great deal of mercy. It is often very difficult. It is often very painful. This hat has more often than not turned into a crown of thorns in my career. Nevertheless, I am grateful for it, and I am grateful for you being here to celebrate another year in the service, and in experiencing and helping others to experience the infinite, incredible, totally out of this world and unreasonable mercy of the Eternal towards us. And so let's keep it in mind. Lord have mercy, Kyrie eleison, and we will also be asking for it, and we will exercise whenever it's possible in our own lives mercy, so that the life of the merciful will be our life as well. And so may the mystery of that which hangs twixt heaven and earth descend upon us and remain with us always. Amen.